everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be doing the Save One, Drop One book edition challenge thingy. So I originally saw the book edition of this challenge done by Jesse the Reader, so I will link his video down below. But apparently this is a challenge from the K-pop universe, but it seems like a lot of fun. I'm definitely into challenge videos. I find them to be very enjoyable, and this one looked like a good time. It kind of reminded me of the, what was it? Read, reread, rewrite, burn challenge sort of thing. Basically, you pick two books and you choose which one you would rather like save, so you will keep that one, and the other one you will drop. So I guess, like, does that make sense? I don't think I explained that very well, but like, you're picking your favorite out of two books essentially. So slight change of plans here, because I was starting to film and I did the random number selector and it just was absolutely a nightmare. It was taking me forever to count to get to the books. So instead, I'm sorting by random on Goodreads because unfortunately they don't have a random book selector. That would be really cool though. I could definitely make some videos if they had something like that. But with this method, it does include all my star ratings. It's not sorted by star rating or anything like that. So I'm just going to pick the first two books that show up that are 4 stars or above. So this first pairing, we have City of Bones by Cassandra Clare and Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. This is kind of an interesting pairing because I see some similarities with these two books. I feel like they are both pretty fun urban fantasies. One deals with zombies, sort of, and then the other one deals with demons, but I think that City of Bones definitely has a way more elaborate magic system. The zombie thing in Undead Girl Gang is just kind of like an additional thing to it. It's not really the main part of the story, like it is, but it's not a series where it's built around this whole magic system. There's not really a magic system going for it. But I did obviously like both of these books. I would say though, out of the two, I did prefer City of Bones. I have a nostalgia factor attached to that book too. Like, I'm not the biggest Mortal Instruments fan by any means. I did really enjoy the books, but definitely not as big of a fan as a lot of other people are. But I think out of this pairing, I did prefer that one. Although I did really like Undead Girl Gang too. It was a nice surprise how much I liked that one. The next pairing that I have is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han and Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. So this one, I did like both of these books. They're both very different, obviously. I mean, one is YA, one is adult, but they are kind of similar because they're both romantic stories. Now, I would say as a whole, the series of To All the Boys I've Loved Before, I really enjoyed. However, the individual books I have kind of all over the place ratings for, and the first one I did like a lot. However, I did find Lara Jean to be a difficult character for me at times, and Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, you guys know how much I loved that story. It kind of sparked my love of adult romances. It's so fun and cute, so I have to go with that one. But I mean, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is definitely a close contender. I did really like that book and that series overall too. It's just, Josh and Hazel just has such a special place in my heart. Next, we have Renegades by Marissa Meyer and The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. Both of these I did really enjoy, but I feel like neither one really stands out ahead of the other immediately. It's kind of one that I have to think about more. I liked Elizabeth Frankenstein because it was a different twist on the Frankenstein story, and I had read that pretty like close to when I ended up reading Elizabeth Frankenstein, and I did really enjoy Frankenstein and I liked what the author did with it. And Renegades is just super cool. It's like a superhero sort of fantasy and it's very different. But like I said, like neither one really edges out right away. They're both kind of just like average 4-star reads for me. I guess if anything, I would say I maybe preferred Renegades more. I think the concept of it with the sort of superhero-esque story was very interesting to me, and the good versus evil thing, I always find it interesting to explore something like that. So I will go with Renegades. Next, we have Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins and American Street by Ibby Zoboy. Totally different stories, but both stories that I really loved. Catching Fire is probably my favorite in the Hunger Games trilogy, but American Street is a book that just made me think. It surprised me with how much I ended up enjoying it. It's about a Haitian immigrant to the United States, and it deals with topics of how immigrants will often come over looking for a better life, but they end up in communities that are on the fringes because they're not really given the opportunities to be successful as easily. And I think it was a really good analysis of that. Catching Fire, like I said, liked it a lot, but I think I'm gonna have to go with American Street. It introduced me to a whole new author that I fell in love with. I can't wait for Ibby Zoboy's new book to come out. My copy actually shipped. I got the email yesterday, which is exciting, but it was just such an unexpected delight to read that book because it definitely made me think and continues to make me think after I've read it, which means a lot. Next we have Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow and Wanderlust by Jen Malone. Again, an interesting pairing. So Forest of a Thousand Lanterns is a retelling of the evil queen myth, and it's kind of that backstory on a villain that I tend to really enjoy, and I think it was done super well. Loved the writing and everything for it, and Wanderlust is just a really fun, cute, contemporary travel story. But I think out of these two that Forest of a Thousand Lanterns kind of has to get it, because Wanderlust I enjoyed. It was fun, but I did have some issues with it. Meanwhile, I feel like Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, there aren't really any glaring things that I can remember being wrong with it. It was just a book that was a lot of fun to read and very interesting. I just am a sucker for that villain backstory. Ooh, this is a hard one. Actually, we have quite a few books here that could be contenders. There's like 3 that are equal, but I'm still gonna pick 2. So Girl in the Blue Coat by Monica Hesse and With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. The other book that showed up here is Tiny Pretty Things by Sona Chairai-Potra and Danielle Clayton, which I read recently and talked about it in a recent reads video, and you guys know I liked it a lot. It was like so much drama, but I will keep it to With the Fire on High and Girl in the Blue Coat. Both of these books I enjoyed so thoroughly. I loved With the Fire on High. It was beautifully written and just a great story overall, but I think that I do have to give it to Girl in the Blue Coat only because I have like a personal attachment to that book. It's a historical fiction set in World War II in the Netherlands, which is where my mom's side of the family is from. So it just made me think of like what my ancestors may have gone through, what my grandmother went through, and it's a personal story to me, but I do really love With the Fire on High so much. So this one is like neck and neck, honestly. It's very hard for me to pick one. So Girl in the Blue Coat showed up here again, but I'm gonna skip that one because I was just talking about it. But that leaves us with To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo and Forestborn by Shannon Hale. So Forestborn is the final book of the Books of Bayern series, and I do love that series, but Forestborn is probably my least favorite of them. That doesn't mean I didn't like it, because I did still really like it, but To Kill a Kingdom was a very interesting and surprisingly like fun and sexy sort of Little Mermaid retelling that I had a lot of fun with. I just said it was fun, so that was redundant, but you get the point. I think even though I do have a higher rating for Forestborn on Goodreads, I mean, I never really trust my ratings because they change so much, but I feel like these ones are kind of neck and neck once again. But I think I might have to give it to Forestborn. I love that series and I do love the characters. I did really like To Kill a Kingdom. I just don't think it had like the extra edge to make it win this one. There's another repeat here, so Undead Girl Gang, but gonna skip that one. So we are left with The Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams and On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I liked both of these books for very different reasons, but this one has to go to On the Come Up because I just absolutely loved it. I love Angie Thomas's writing, and that's once again, it's a situation where I can't really think of any glaring issues that I had with the book. Meanwhile, Bromance Book Club I loved. I had a lot of fun reading it, but I did have some issues with it that I definitely remember and kind of kept me from absolutely falling in love with the story. It was a lot of fun, but those issues just kind of kept it a little bit lower than On the Come Up, which I just totally fell in love with. Next is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wine and Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. I really enjoyed the Anna and the French Kiss trilogy. It definitely is not without its issues. Isla would probably be my least favorite of them, and this one is kind of an easy one once again. It has to go to Codename Verity because I absolutely love that book. It is one of my favorite books of all time. So thought-provoking and just like had a strong impact on my heart and is a book that I will remember forever. Meanwhile, Isla I feel like I kind of forget what happened in it, to be honest, and I read it a very long time ago. Next up we have Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan, and my favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. Now, these books, once again, both are romances. One's YA, one is adult. I think both of them surprised me. I wasn't really expecting to like my favorite Half Night Stand as much as I did, even though I do love that author duo. I just hadn't heard the greatest things about it, so my expectations going into it were pretty low, but it was a pleasant surprise. I had a lot of fun listening to the audiobook. It was like one shift at work and I was just listening to the audiobook. And I also actually listened to the audiobook for Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, and that one totally surprised me. I read it around Christmas because it is a Christmassy story, and it's a Christmassy story that has to do with bookstores too, and it just was so cute. I think I'm gonna have to give it to Dash and Lily because it was like such a lovely experience reading that Christmas story. Actually, Christina Lauren, they're coming out with a Christmas book that I've already pre-ordered and I'm so excited for it. That's besides the point, but yeah, it's gonna have to go to Dash and Lily. Even though I didn't like the sequel that much, that's besides the point. Next we have The Tales of the Peculiar by Ransom Riggs and The Diviners by Libba Bray. This might seem like one where it might be an obvious choice, but honestly, I really loved Tales of the Peculiar. I love new sort of fairy tale stories, and that's kind of what it is. It's folklore surrounding the universe of Miss Peregrine's. It reminds me of Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, which is folklore and what is it, like, I don't know, fables and fairy tales surrounding the Grisha universe. And I just think it adds so much and brings the world to life, and I just genuinely super enjoy that. But I do absolutely love The Diviners. It's one of my favorite books of all time once again, so I do have to give it to The Diviners. But like, I did have to think about it for a second. It's just The Diviners is so cool. The writing for it is amazing, and I love it so much. So I'm just gonna do one last one here. So this final one is Ink by Alice Broadway against Beach Read by Emily Henry. I read Beach Read recently. These are totally different stories. We have an adult romance on the one hand and then a YA sci-fi dystopian story on the other. But both of them I liked a lot, probably around equally. This is definitely a hard one. I'm so indecisive. I really haven't had that much of a problem in this video with being indecisive, but here it comes because I don't know which one to pick. Like, I really liked both of these, and I'm kind of inclined to go for Beach Read, but I also don't know if that's because I read it more recently, but I did enjoy Ink a lot. There was such an inventive concept to it. It has like tattoos tell the story of your life, and it reminded me of a bunch of other YA dystopians, but in a good way. It was like the best parts of those created this whole new YA dystopian. I think that I'm going to go with Beach Read, but like this one really is right there. Like, they're very close. It's hard, but I'm gonna go with that one. So that is all for the Save One, Drop One book edition challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun doing it, so if this is something that you would like me to do in the future, please do let me know, and maybe I'll do it with like 2020 reads specifically or specific genres or something. I think that might be kind of fun. I don't know. Do let me know. I would much appreciate that. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!